Thokozeni, thokozeni, thokozani. Senifikile. Thokozani, guys. Thokozani, thokozani. Ninjani. I'm sorry about the lighting, guys. It's daytime here, and so I have interference from light outside. Apologies, because I can see. It's not nice, but it's more the message that's important, right? The lighting. Togoza noshile, togoza kehumudiswe. Hey, I don't know. Emmanuel, togoza. Kehumudiswe, togoza, 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 togoza. Figile, togoza. Togozani, togozani, togozani. Ninjani, how's everyone doing? Just a quick check-in. How are you? And my glasses are dark because the light is coming in. So how is everyone doing? Since our full moon ritual. Like I said, please guys, feedback. I'd love some feedback. Just give feedback on the, what you call this place, where they do testimonials or whatever it is they call it. What do they call it? The place where you write what you think about this channel. Please, I'd love to see any feedback about the full moon ritual for those who managed to do it. We will be doing a new moon ritual. The new moon is May 19th. I will give you ample time and ample information towards the time, but we're going to do another one collectively as well. So, Charlotte, Makosazana, Ninjani, Boniwe, Togoz and Ndlovukazi. Ndlovukazi, I've been meaning to message you to find out how things are getting along, but we'll talk. Nigiwe, Togoz, I get the name confusion a lot. I know, but I have to learn it because I pride myself in saying people's names properly, so I will learn it, I promise. Pumzile, I'm not taking on my video. Ngibeza uzofundisa. Mbani, Vuyogazi, Patmo, Tokozani, guys. I'm going to get right into it, ne? So, I hear that there was an episode of a certain show that was screened, and this show, whoa, caused a lot of nightmares, and people couldn't sleep for days afterwards. Certain graveyard scenes. How? So you guys were scared. I am not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you. But I gathered from the streets that maybe this is something that we can use to teach, rather than have this energy of fear over people and have this energy of negativity over people. Because gahle, guys, that's why I'm always like, please be careful what you watch. Please be careful what you consume, especially if you're a spiritually gifted person. In this time that we're in, and I'm going to say it again, we are going to see things that we've never seen before, right? A lot is going to be exposed. And what people aren't realizing is, while we sit there and criticize the spaces that air or promote such content, we must realize that even they are not aware of what they're actually doing. They are playing beautifully into the current situation, which is that everything that has been done in the dark is going to be brought to light. Does this make sense? So while we can criticize and say, this is terrible, they're painting Ubungoma in a bad way. No, it's not, because the message is consistent. Everything that has been done in the dark is going to be brought to light. Injalo. So what I wanted to do today was to actually talk about the importance of taking care of your graves. But to sort of, sort of provide a context for the conversation other than that which was negative. We all saw what we saw. If you didn't see what you didn't see, then just let's keep it there. But what you did see, for those who saw, that does happen. Totally accurate. And that does, there are worse things than that happen. And we might see the worst things. Angazi ukuthi umoya uzovunguza kuphi, but we might end up seeing some more. My point is this: do not allow yourselves to be paralyzed by fear. And this is why I want to teach on this, so that we shift our focus from that which makes us fearful, that which makes us scared, because that lowers our vibrations, into looking at why it is important to take care of our loved ones' resting places. So the first thing that I want to talk about is, let's look at the importance of land, right? So historically, you hear us, like, we are here, siyaphahla, siyakhuleka, because we want land back. Okay, what are we going to do with land? Look, guys, it goes beyond food production. It goes beyond food production. You must understand that the African person's survival and way of life is inextricably linked to the land. Everything that gives our life meaning, everything that gives our life a certain dignity, everything that gives our life harmony and peace is found in connection with land. Why am I saying this? Here's an example. Traditionally, and those of you who have ancestral homes, those of you who have amakaya to go to in the rural areas, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. At home, or traditionally, every person or every household had a plot of land on which there was the household. So traditionally, let's go back to the huts, because they're the easiest way to explain this. There would be the grass huts, right? Unekishi, which usually was called indlu kagogo, was a kitchen. Then there were the different rondavels. It might be one that was used as the main bedroom for Baba. And maybe if he had Istembu, then each of the different wives had their own hut, and maybe group of huts for them and their children, right? Number one. Number two, what was also very important in that homestead was the kraal. Kraal. Isibaya, meaning the place where they kept the livestock, particularly the cows. Okay, the mbuzis usually had their own smallish nana place, the chickens had their own. But the kraal, the cattle kraal, is very critical. And you'll find this across the African continent, that this is how these households were structured. Why is the cattle kraal important? Because this is where people's ancestors, if you like, or the spirits of their ancestors, were almost kind of harnessed and kept, right? Okay, you can't keep a spirit moves. But what I'm saying is, when they wanted to call their ancestors, because of certain things that were done esbayeni in the cattle kraal, it was much easier to go in there and to start to phahla, and you knew that they would be there and they would be listening. Does that make sense? So, not only was the land important for growing food, okay, so now you've got your kraal, and then of course you have your piece of land. Sometimes it's attached to your homestead, sometimes it's elsewhere where you could grow your food. But my point is, your spiritual life as an African person was inextricably attached and linked to the land, because of the way these things were structured. Indlu kagogo, grandma's kitchen or hut. This is where a lot of healing used to take place. This is the place where, if there was a sick child in the homestead, they knew that they could take this child to Ugogo's hut and Ugogo would know what to mix together in terms of herbs. Remember, Indlovukazi were healers. We were inyanga. Not in the sense that we understand now, but in the sense that we worked with herbs because we were to provide healing for our families. So Umtana goes to Indluka Gogo, where Gogo knows what to mix and mix and mix. Sometimes Gogo would know that this is beyond just a regular fever, and Ugogo would shisa impepo and phahlela lo mntwana. So there were two places, the crawl, where you could phahla, and mostly it was men who would go in there to do that. And then there was Indluka Gogo, which was really almost like the central point of Ikaya. Does that make sense? So then the other thing is, and this is up for debate. Some people have told me on TikTok that no, this is not so in our culture, but certainly in my Karanga culture, the burial ground for your dead, deceased people, those who have passed on, was within the homestead too. Right? So we're not talking tiny little homestead, we're talking a big homestead. So that the graves of Okoko, Nabokokogazi were often found within that homestead. And anyone else who passed on, be it a child, be it a sibling, they would be buried there. It's to the extent that, for example, in my own family, if somebody, we've had relatives who have passed on while in South Africa, they will be transported home to be buried in the family burial plot. You understand? So, you know, we're not going to have somebody buried in Gauteng in a cemetery in Joburg somewhere. No. People would put money together to literally take this person home so that they could be buried in their homestead in the family plot. So look at what has happened to us as African people. There are many who don't even have an ancestral home anymore, right? With colonization, people were removed off their land. These homesteads, many of them were destroyed, and people left behind their graves. They left behind their cattle kraal, isbaya. Two most important things. In Gogo, you could say, well, you know what, you can go and direct a new one and Lizinzi Samadlo's Lapo, but you left your kraal where there may be 4 or 5 generations of ancestors. You left your burial plot where your ancestors who were born in 17, like, all gone. All gone. Now people find themselves in the different cities. People, you know, people die. And in the cities were created communal cemeteries. It makes my heart very heavy when I actually try to imagine when I transition being put in a communal cemetery amongst people I don't know. Fine, my spirit is no longer there. But my point is, the connection between our ancestors and ourselves has been terribly affected by loss of land, being removed from our ancestral lands and being packed in the cities. And one of those disadvantages is that we are burying our loved ones in city public cemeteries, basically. Right? You don't really, unless you have some sort of money, you don't really, you get to choose your burial plot. You get to choose your grave, maybe, but you don't know who's this side of you and who's this side of you. Do you understand? So that thing that has, and this is not to say ubutagati using graves did not happen mandulo or doesn't happen in Makaya. It does, but it is worse in a situation where graves are in a communal plot. And then on top of that, remember, people move. You know, so you might be in Joburg, you know, you've buried, say, your mother or your child in a cemetery there. But then, boom, you lose your job and you get a job in Mpumalanga. Now you need to move. You leave that grave behind. When you are there, you get so hectic and busy in life, you literally forget that there is a grave of your child that you left in Gauteng. Now, as you saw in what you saw, the targets are the graves that are most neglected. The ones where you only know there's a grave because there's a little number there. You know that little number? Why? Because for sure, if there is a grave that is in that kind of disrepair, you can bet that that ancestor is not taken care of. Meaning to say, this ancestor is not a part or an integral part of his or her family. They are not kupulwad, they are not venerated, they have not been cleansed. The rites of passage to transition them through the gates of Anpu into Izwe Lamatonga hasn't happened. So basically, they're just a spirit in jail who are probably thirsty, who are probably like just stuck until somebody comes and bribes them and says, hey, guess what? Zovusa min, zokupula, and this is what you're going to do for me. Do you see how deep that is, guys? So now, idlo zelihle, perhaps, had it been taken care of, has now been turned into idlo zelibi, into embi, that is going to go and is going to target people. Is this a fate that you want for yourself? That you are so neglected that somebody at some point using concoctions and using heka and magic can come and bribe you and take your spirit and use your spirit for nefarious things? Is that what you would want for any of your loved ones? Because now, the day you wake up maybe and you decide, ngizophahla ugogo, ngizophahla ubani, akasekho ugogo bamthethe bahambe naye, ugogo uhambe bulala abantu, uthunyiwe. And of course, igazi liyakhuphula. So if Gogo's job is to go around unaliving people, Gogo is energized. Gogo will keep out there, keep doing whatever it is doing at the command of whoever has paid the spirit to do. This is why I say it is important to take care of your graves. It is important to make sure that your graves are seen to be visited, are seen to be cleaned. It is important. You can phahla at a grave. You do know this. Why? Because the bones of your ancestors are there. The melanin that was in your ancestors' skin and bones is there. What is melanin? Melanin is a communication molecule. They are not there as in the spirit, but the minute that you start ukukhuluma, the melanin in you responds to the melanin in those bones and vice versa. Ukhona lo gogo. That is why you find most people who want to change something huge in their lives will go to the grave and cry and beg and say, Gogo, my life is a mess. I don't know what's going on. Please come and help me. Because uzozwakala. So what happens is the grave of a loved one becomes a portal through which you can communicate with the spirit of your loved one. Is that making sense? Much like when you go to the water, we know that water is alive. We know that water, wherever you are in the world, you can phahla your ancestors at a body of water like a river or a lake or the ocean, because we know that water circulates around this earth. All rivers flow into the sea. All lakes are fed from the sea and back out. So we know for a fact that this whole planet is connected by water. So I here in America go to the river a lot to phahla. Why do I do it there? Because it is a big portal through which I can communicate with my ancestors who are buried north, south, east, and west, wherever they are in the world. All of them. The ones from the Congo, the ones from East Africa, the ones from Zimbabwe, the ones from Eswatini, the ones from South Africa, the ones from Mozambique. Bonke nyabaphahla. I can invoke them at a body of water. This is the same when you go to your loved one's grave. You can't invoke all of them, but you can invoke that one, and the grave becomes the portal through which you can communicate very effectively with that spirit. Does this make sense? So this is why, like I said, those shows like that one, negative as they may be, and there are going to be more of them. We just have to be ready, because we're going to be shown all the things that happen in the dark, all the things we were not aware are happening. This is the time of truth, right? The age of Ma'at, the age of Aquarius. So don't be surprised and don't be frightened. Don't be frightened. Learn. Learn from those things, right? And also may it make you strengthen ukupahla for land back. Because quite frankly, unless we have a way of going back to our way of being as African people, we are lost. There is nothing that's going to restore our being unless we have land. Now, I'm speaking as an old 50-year-old here who has seen a lot. And I personally have come to that conclusion with what I have seen on my spiritual walk and in my walk just as a human being. For the African and our way of life, we need land. Here's another thing. You see the communal burial plots. They're not private cemeteries, right? They're public. So you take your loved ones and you put them in a public space. Anybody can actually go in there and do whatever they want. Who's going to stop them? Who's going to stop them? It's a public place. If your loved one is buried in your family compound, most family compounds, if not all of them, have ways of protecting spiritually everything that is within that homestead. Everything. That includes the kraal, that includes the chickens, everything that is within that kraal, the house is protected spiritually. Umuzi lo uqinisiwe, as they would say. And there are different ways of uqinisa umuzi. And most family members did it themselves. They knew how to protect or fortify your home against abathakati, against thieves, against all this. Do you see what I'm saying? That's why when people are like, yeah, but we are thakati emakhaya. Yeah, it's a problem, thakati, especially within the family. But that's a story for another day. But my point is, your loved ones and preserving your ancestry and preserving that connection, namadlozi wako, really comes from making sure you establish that relationship with your ancestors. Fine, right now, maybe you don't got a piece of land. Right now, your mom is buried in a public place. Make sure you're visiting that place. Even if you're in another province, make it a point that you're going to go there with your siblings if that's if you're talking to each other. Ooh, and do something. If your siblings go clean up mom's grave, Pasha, talk to her while you're there. But make sure that your loved one's grave, it's clear that there is activity around that. And keep her ekushulige. Don't let years and years lull without you doing something of a sort of umsebenzi, ukumkupul. Because that's where the danger lies. Remember, spirits are of high intelligence. You neglect and you forget about a spirit. Doesn't matter if they're in your bloodline. Someone can come and bribe them. So if you're not taking care of your ancestors, someone else will. And And then you get to deal with the consequences of not having ancestral protection, of not having ancestral gifting, meaning your wealth is not protected, your children are not protected, you are not protected. Nothing you do, your job, anything is secured. Remember, your ancestors have one sole purpose once they transition, which is to take care of you and yours. That literally is all they have to do once they've transitioned. So that energy, that spirit can be bribed to work for someone else. Now, what work they're asked to do, that's where it's at. Now, a question might come, what happened there? Can it be reversed? Yes, it can be reversed. It can be reversed. But tell me something. That grave and the way it looked, it's like this person is forgotten. Maybe this person is, maybe their own kids or whatever, great grandkids are already old people themselves. And the kids who came from those have no idea where this grave is. So do you think there's any chance at all that Lil Kehla or Kehlakazi will ever be restored to normalcy and brought back into the family? Probably not, right? What are the implications, though, for the generations that are surviving and living? So you go to Mkhulu Nkanyezi to go and hlola, and we look, and I'm like, seems to be a problem here. But you see, zivalekile from that side. Because of this one or two, and maybe more ancestors who nobody has taken care of, and somebody has done things to them. Because those things start to affect the ones who are living. That's why I said we are a community of the living and the living dead. We are always have been as Africans. And that is our way of life. And here's the thing, those who are in these religions that call our ancestors demons, well, you know what? You call them that, and I always say self-fulfilling prophecies, they're going to be turned into demons because you don't do anything for them. Anti knitting a demon. Yeah, bazokhanda ama-demon my ancestors win. What you gonna do? And then the day you have the awakening and suddenly realize that, I was going the wrong way. I shouldn't have been. Hey, those of you who've ever called your ancestors demons in some funky church, y'all have to shweleza, because those are some heavy words to call your great-grandparents, to call your parents. You are going to have to shweleza. It just comes to me right now. Go. So I just wanted to share that, and I just wanted to make you guys aware that, yes, these things are happening, but there are ways in which they can be prevented. I even said when I was talking about this on a TikTok that for those of you who have an ancestral home, don't ever take that space, no matter how small it is, don't ever take that ancestral home. If you have a home, don't ever take that for granted. Because your very life is held in that space. So if a loved one passes on, put money together. Stop putting your loved ones in these communal cemeteries. Nizosola. Put the extra money together to get the body moved from wherever. And don't forget to ukuthatha umoya. You're right, using ihlahla. So it's not just the body you should concern yourself with. If this person died in a hospital and you are around, thathani ihlahla limeme lo muntu uthi sesiye ekhaya manje. So you are taking the corpse and the spirit. There's a isihlahla sakhona ngisikhohlwa, I can't remember what the name is in isiZulu. But there is a way in which you are not just concerned about the corpse. You are also concerned about taking the spirit back home. Yeah. You do this for yourselves and you do this for your children. Because if failure to do this, niyazibonela nje nani ukuthi what can happen. Yeah. So I hope this has been useful for you guys. I hope, things to think about. And as we patla for land back, understand that we're not just doing this because we want food. If it was all about food, trust me, they're already feeding us. It's poison, but baz feed, and we are not starving. The reason that we want land back is for these other important things. We are nothing as African people without land. That's why we are messed up. Kahle kahle. That's why you have to look at the colonial project as the hideous thing that it is. It did more than just, take our wealth and our land and our artifacts, which actually, maybe I've got 30 minutes. Yeah, I'm going to give out 7 till 2. Which brings us to next. We can talk about the issue of anpu, right? We said anpu is the guardian of souls, meaning that anpu kahle kahle is your conscience. Remember, we said in African spirituality, there is no external God, there is no external judge, there is no hell and heaven as described by Inkolo Zen, these religions. There's no such thing. When we talk about the energy or frequency of Anpu, we're actually talking about one of the energies and frequencies that was used to create you as a person. It may not be your crowning principle or energy, meaning you were not born in that season, but it is certainly one of the 12 that was used to knit you in your mother's womb so that you're there. Therefore, Anpu lives in you. Anpu is that frequency that has made you. It is the frequency that controls your conscious and subconscious, that gate between your subconscious and your conscious. It is also your conscience, meaning that thing that gives you ubuntu bako, that thing that gives you the knowledge of right and wrong, that thing that allows you to make a right decision when it comes to the laws of ma'at, which, by the way, are also a principle that was used to create you. Therefore, ma'at's laws are within you. You've forgotten them, but you know them, because that's how even a small child can tell the difference between doing right and doing wrong without you even telling them. Kids know when they're doing sneaky things because they'll look at you like, I've been caught. So we have forgotten. That's why they are written so that we remember them, so that we ignite our DNA memory so that they are always alive and active, right? So that is the role of Anpu, right? The weighing of your heart in a scale, your heart against a feather. Shall I show you my Anpu, guys? I have an Anpu for my Insamo. Hold on. Yo. Somebody said to me on Twitter, this is straight up evil. I'm like, yo, ignorance is bliss. So this is my Anpu, right? And I love this one. I'll tell you why. Because it shows exactly what we want. When we say guardian of the souls and the gate, if you like, Anpu being the gate between, I'll call this side, ilizwe lamathongo, and this side, where it is that Amit will destroy your spirit. Especially if you've done terrible things, you don't get a chance to come and do those things again. Your soul gets destroyed, right? So here's the feather of Ma'at, and here's your heart. So it's Anpu or your conscience within you that judges yourself as to whether you belong on this side or whether you belong on that side. So based on the judgment of Anpu, your conscience, you might decide to just say, ay, nyanga, let me just go and stay back here because I don't belong back here. Right? I love this. I think it's so beautiful. So, speaking about that, one thing we know and understand is during the season of Anpu, the gates are open, right? This is the time where traditionally izangoma, izinyanga, those people who worked with, what would we call this? with magic, so to speak. This is the time they would energize their spiritual tools. You understand, please understand that when we are crying and calling for our artifacts to be brought back to Africa, for example, the bronze statues of Benin, do you understand that we were not calling for bronze statues of Benin? Let me show you something. All right, take for example this. There's an example. I've done nothing to this one, okay? Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this. Take for example this, right? This is a statue, right? Because of the season of Anpu, knowing that the gates are open for souls, this would be the time where people would use artifacts and then infuse or call upon the spirit of a loved one or a spirit of a principle. So, for example, you might be Sekhmet, and I might say, ngizocela u-Anpu angivumele ukuthi uSekhmet azela. Sekhmet, ubiza uSekhmet uzombeka la. Uthi Sekhmet, wonke umuntu, any person who comes into my office in my absence, hit them with lightning. I'm giving an extreme example. But my point is, these so-called artifacts, guys, were not artifacts in J. These things were sources of power, and the British knew this. That's why they could destroy, I don't know how many millions of people they destroyed, and I don't know how many tons of these statues from Benin they took across the sea. Everything of ours that is sitting in a museum, either in the Vatican or in some big museum across the world, they know that these things are imbued with a power, which is another reason Africa is a mess. Because all the things that made us powerful, all the things or the spirits that made us whole are trapped in some glass things in museums somewhere. By the way, by Kupuga, they're all coming up and they're all coming back. That's why most of the time you see articles saying that Germany's decided to send back 50 skulls of kings across the continent. Why? Because siyabakhuphula, and siyabakhuphula through ukuphahla, and we're energizing them so that these things in their homes, in their whatevers, they are starting to do things that make them feel weird, and webashisa, as we like to say. So what they're doing is they're sending it all back, because we are energizing the spirits that infuse those things. So if this is a grandfather statue, during this time of Anpu, you can partner and invoke Yomkulu to come and settle here, so that when you have this in your msamo, yazi ukuthi ngingakhuluma nomkhulu in the presence of this, umkhulu uzovela quickly. Portal. You're making this thing into a portal, basically, for that spirit which you want to come. Izangoma zizombulala namhlanje, keep imfihlo. Okay? So, this is an invitation to any of you during this season of Anpu. Spirituality is for us all. During the season of Anpu, you can actually ask Anpu to give you permission to invoke whoever it is, be it your go-go, be it whoever it is, to come and energize something that you put emsamo wako. You're not trapping them. What you're doing is you're creating a portal through which, when you want ugogo, you can go and guka at that thing and speak, and ugogo will hear you. Does this make sense? Now, I know I'm going to have a lot of questions about, can you have these things if you're in a rented place? The answer is yes, yes, and yes, because remember, you are not awazinzisi amadlozi. In other words, you're not using someone else's space and putting your ancestors in there. You're literally just creating a portal through which you can speak to Gogo. So if this represents Umkulu, you can do that. I don't know. Do I have any questions on this? Anyone want to ask me any questions? What I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to translate from isiZulu the ritual you can use to do this. And I will post the English version as well. But please, if you are umuntu wagwantu on the continent and you have a home language, you're going to do this in your home language. I said it before when we were talking about the rituals. Our languages have resonance with the cosmos. Islungu doesn't. And unfortunately, there will be those who do not have, like my diaspora brothers and sisters. It's okay. You can do that in English too. There's nothing we can do. But if you have a home language and you're talking to your people, even if you are pasharing to Lemimoya, the universal spirits like Anpu, Sekhmet, if you can use your home language to create that resonance. Ne? So I hope this has been useful for you guys. So this season of Anpu, remember the season of Anpu, we close out, the last day of the season of Anpu is May 22nd. And then May 23rd, we get into the season of Sekhmet. Yito Sekhmet. But I'm sorry, I had to do that. Yeah, I had to do that. I know. It's hard to understand this Mkulu who can be so childish sometimes. But then, it is what it is. So, any other questions? Let me see if I have questions. I'm ready to answer any questions. Any questions? Yes, you learn. So you see this whole business of running around, going from pillar to post, looking for protection. You can create your own protection amulet. Njalo nje. This season is the best season for it, right? You might have a necklace or you might have, I don't know, a porcupine quill, say, yeah, this can serve as umkhonto. Uyaphahla ufaka uzimani la ukuthi mina ungaba nomuntu. Think of, for example, using the universal principles. Think of your warriors, your fighter principles. Sekhmet is one. Yeah, Sekhmet will burn everything, will fight. Think of who are the other warriors. Think of all the warrior ones, right? Yeah, so you can invoke them and tell the Muti, when I call you using this thing, please, let's fight. Meaning to say, anyone who messes with you, this thing appears as umkhonto. So tomorrow is Mother's Day. I see people are taking flowers and balloons to graveyards. Yeah, hopefully they will pass a while they are there too. And people will do this for a certain time, guys. That's the thing. That's why it was always great if the burial plot was in the homestead. Because then each generation would come in as some die out and continue taking care of the graves. But believe you me, if it's in the cities, at some point there's going to be a cut. These whole things usually happen. Some people do it within the first 5 years. They're very vigilant and going to clean. But the minute they move from wherever it is they live to another city or to another province, you see? And then if they have kids, wherever it is they are, who's ever going to say, okay, we need to make a trip to go and visit great-grandma's grave, which is in Soweto somewhere, right? That's where the disconnection comes. That's why I say the land for Africans is way more important than anybody can ever understand except an African person. Because we are a people of continuity, because we exist and live with our ancestors. So whenever there's a cut or a severance of that continuity, we are lost. We become confused. We become a mess. And it's because of that loss of connection with those who take care of us from the spirit realm. So we take care of them, but they also have one singular job, which is to take care of us and make sure that we are successful in life. Let's see, what else is there? Guys, do share this if you think this can help somebody. Do share this. Because he's lazy mfundo lazy, nobody really talks about a lot of this stuff too much. But knowledge is power, right? When you know, you know. So if you're somebody here who has not visited any graves for a long time, maybe that's something to put on your to-do list. Maybe it's something to put on your to-do list. I don't believe that I sense that there's some who are watching this for whom this is not an accident, this life. I really sense that there's some of you, the call is that you need to go and visit your loved ones' graves. You may find that they've been tampered with, but there are ways of fixing. But you won't know if you don't go. So yeah. Anyway, that's that. Thokozeni. So to the mothers, in Indlovukazi, oh, you are God incarnate. I personally, Indlovukazi to Indlovukazi, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for the job you do. See, I want to tell you something. The world may be a mess right now. Imagine the worst mess it would be if we didn't exist. There would be no world to talk about. This is why our time is here to rise to the occasion and take back the power. We're taking it back. We're not getting it given by anyone. Take back our original power so that we can set things right. So I just want to say thank you. Yo, you are women after my own heart. I love women like there's no tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. We get this one day, but let me tell you, there's nothing anyone, man or child, can do on this planet to thank us for what we do. Nothing. So we'll take the flowers, we'll take the chocolate, we'll take the jewelry, we'll take the this, but know that there's nothing that they can ever give us to thank us for what we do. So I want to salute you from the bottom of my heart. I want to encourage you. I want to encourage your healing. We need us healed. I want our healing, our collective healing tomorrow. That's going to be my work. So that we heal and become strong in an authentic way so that we can do the things that need to be done to fix this world. We do this in honor of ourselves, in honor of all Kokogazi, many of whom went down crying and fighting and who are hoping and praying that we are the ones who are going to heal ourselves so that they can be healed and find peace. And so that our children, our daughters going forward, don't have to do this hard lifting that we are going to have to do. Yeah. So I love you all from the bottom of my heart. Please have a beautiful day tomorrow. And take time just to reflect on how absolutely amazing you are. You really are. Whether you be a go-go watching this, whether you happen to be an auntie who's taking care of your sister's kids, whoever you are, uyindlovukazi, stepping up to the plate. Magwandi. Sanibonga. Love you guys. Thokozeni.